Hi everyone, this is Ricki Spencer and welcome to Quests by Community. Now today we are going to talk everything about music. That's right, music, sounds, words, pitch. But we're going to look at from my favourite lens, and that's the trans lens. And we're going to speak to a choir director, and his name is Jack Riley. He is a extremely talented trans man who has done a lot in his life and is making changes in Australia, being the first ever trans choir. Jack, welcome to our show.
Hi, Ricki. Thank you so much for having me.
So let's start. What is a trans choir?
Well, Key Change is really a space for trans and gender diverse and anyone who's exploring their gender or wanting to unpack, see where they fit in the gender spectrum, for adults to come along and just have a sing and have fun and celebrate trans joy.
So with Key Change, and I do remember getting the email when a friend was telling me about it, when did it sort of develop?
Initially, we were very fortunate. We got a grant from Transgender Victoria to establish a peer support program, and but unfortunately, that was in the middle of COVID. So singing is not a COVID-safe activity. So we had to delay for a little while, but we started actually having rehearsals in May 2022. So it's almost been a year.
And for those people listening, whereabouts is Key Change based?
We're in Fitzroy North. We've been supported by the City of Yarra Council. They've donated a rehearsal space to us, which we're very appreciative of. They've been a really wonderful support. So that's where we hang out on a Monday night.
So let's sort of start deep diving a little bit about the whole idea of being a choir. But behind that as well, I want to get to know Jack.
Sure.
And the passion that came for you for music. Tell us a little bit about your journey, Jack, with music, and has music been a part of your life?
Music has probably been the most dominant force in my whole life. I've been playing an instrument for over 30 years now. I started playing violin when I was about 4.5, and then went to saxophone and trumpet and ended up doing a music degree. Played a bunch of gigs all over Australia, which I really loved. And then later found music therapy when I was looking for something, kind of a way to give back. And to be honest, a little bit more stable work. The gig economy is tricky, but I really love music therapy. It's something that I feel like I get to use a lot of my skills that I've learned as a music therapist and bring them across to choir to help people access the space and make rehearsals fun and enjoyable and accessible and relevant for people.
So tell me, what about, like, with you, your journey in affirming yourself and your voice?
Sure.
Because I think that's the question that a lot of us people who are trans and gender diverse deal with, is voice. How has voice been central to your identity?
Voice is really tied to who we are as people. I think it can be, I don't know, like you can tell if someone's sick through their voice. You can tell if they're sad or happy. You can get a lot from voice. And because of that, it's really personal. For me, I was a singer for many years. And one of my huge worries about medically transitioning through hormones, because it was something that I really wanted to do to affirm my gender, but I knew that it would permanently change my voice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, because I think for many of us from the trans community who love the idea of being involved in the choir or singing, have this sort of dilemma. And maybe it's unfounded, because perhaps it is based on myth or the idea that when one affirms themselves and takes hormone, that somehow the voice changes. Can you give us a little bit of an understanding and maybe dispel some of the myths for our audience?
So if you're a person who takes masculinizing hormones like testosterone, it permanently changes your voice because it thickens your vocal cords or your vocal folds. And the thicker your vocal cords are, the lower your voice sounds. So my voice prior to hormones sounded an octave higher, which is quite significantly higher. And there's this, I don't know exactly where it came from, but I was terrified of changing my voice because there's this kind of myth out there that if you take hormones, you won't be able to sing. And singing is such a huge part of my identity my whole life, as well as my income, because that's how I make my money, is working as a music therapist. But then I was really lucky. I found some research by a wonderful singing teacher and researcher called, please excuse me if I get this wrong, Nadine Mannion. Maiden. She's doing the Churchill Fellowship at the moment on trans voice and the pedagogy of teaching singing with trans and gender diverse students. And through her research, I was able to feel confident enough that changing my voice, and while working with a singing teacher and a speech pathologist, I'd be able to sing again. And then the choir is really because I want to create a space where people can continue to sing through transition, because that's the key. You need to keep singing, you need to keep using your voice and keep it flexible to continue singing, so you don't lose that top register, but you also gain all this beautiful lower register.
Jack, what sort of gave you the idea of establishing a choir for people who are trans? Because one of the questions that I was asked prior, when people heard that I was going to be speaking with you, they wanted me to ask you, why do we need to have a choir specifically just for trans people?
Sure.
So let's get that one out there in the open.
Yeah. Well, there was kind of two driving forces for me. To be totally honest, it wasn't my idea. It was a friend of mine's idea. He came to a gig of mine and he was like, you really need to do a trans choir. And then we talked about it and he was like, we need a space for trans people to come together and sing because it's fun. But choirs typically can be really gendered, and that just is not necessarily a space where trans and gender diverse people feel comfortable using their voices, particularly because everything often is like, this is a women's part, this is a men's part, and what do you do if you're non-binary? Like, where are you going to sing? So creating a space where trans people can come together, explore their voice, maybe sing in a register that they've wanted to sing in their whole life, but because of gender norms and constraints, then they don't feel comfortable using that part of their voice, or they're concerned about how it's going to look to, I don't know, people outside. Because again, voice is so personal. I think having that opportunity to play with it in a friendly space.
For many of us in my generation, I grew up as a child in the 70s. So from the moment that I could speak, I was listening to the records when there were records to ABBA.
Yeah.
And the voices of Anita and Frida, really, there was something about that reached out to me.
Yeah.
As a young boy, it was interesting that I never identified with male singers.
Yeah.
But I could identify with female singers. And I'm just wondering, is this something that you hear of within the trans choir space, that trans-affirming people will perhaps identify with the gender that they're most comfortable with their voice? Or is that just something that's only me?
I'm sure it's not only you, but no, I haven't actually had that chat before. That's so interesting and kind of so affirming in that same way. Like, you've found the voices that speak to you and that you want to sing like.
For me, I grew up in a multicultural family, my adopted family, and it was in the European language, and we had to sing in this language. And it was really weird because I had to sing in the male part.
Yeah.
And that was so disingenuous to me.
Yeah.
And I just hated it so much because I really wanted to be where the female choir girls were.
Yeah.
But I wasn't allowed because there was the division. And I'm just wondering, for people listening, or young people listening to our show, does that happen today, like in schools, that when they have a mixed, I hate that word mixed, but so all gender choir, binary, I should say, because some schools still binary, they put male to a certain section and females?
Yeah, absolutely. It still happens in schools, in adult choirs.
Oh, okay.
It's everywhere. You can cross the gender line. My mum's always sung in community choirs, and her voice is, I don't know, a lower voice. So she'd often sing the tenor parts, but you know, she was really crossing the gender lines to go and stand with the men and do that kind of thing, which is, I don't know, who can be bothered with that? Just there's no, so with Key Change, like, you can sing whatever you want. There's no rule, which is, well, there is a rule. It's we sing everything twice. But there's no rules about what you have to sing, which is a really interesting space because everyone sings whatever they like. And some women are exploring their lower parts of their voice, and some men are exploring their higher parts, and you can change it every week, or, you know, from rehearsal to rehearsal.
So talk us through it, Jack. So
Yeah.
say, all right, I'm really keen to go.
Cool.
And people must know that I'm someone who does want to sing. Tell me, what do I do? Let's take the steps. Okay, I'm listening to this right now on Bent TV, and I'm thinking I'm nervous, but I really feel I want to come. What are the steps I need to do?
Sure. Well, I would say you can either send me an email, or you can jump on either Facebook or Instagram. But it's basically Key Change Choir. If you look us up, Key Change Choir. And if you jump on Instagram, you'll chat to Kat, who's an amazing choir member. Kat has been in it since day one. I was having a look at the photos from our first rehearsal the other day. Yeah, and Kat's amazing. Also on the Instagram, there's lots of information about what choir looks like and what to expect. There's a walk through the venue. We really do try to make it as accessible for the whole community as possible.
Wow, that's my next big question, accessibility, because there'd be a lot of people who are listening, who are part of my disability community. So if one has a disability, is it accessible for, say, for someone who's wheelchair bound to come into the space?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's no steps. The only concern I have is about there's one door. We'd need to measure the size of the door to make sure that everyone's individual wheelchair fits through that door. But there's a huge neurodiverse group in the choir. Like, I think the majority of the choir is neurodiverse. So we try and make things we like to have things written down. We like to have things verbally communicated. There's fidgets. So anyone, if you need more sensory input, then we can provide that where we can. Lots of people use them all the time too, which is really nice. But also if you need somewhere quiet, we try and set up quiet spaces so people, when it's too much, you can go and recenter, rejig so you feel comfortable to come back.
What about someone like myself who is, I would say now, is officially the golden girls age, in my 50s?
Yeah.
Is that not too late to join the choir?
Absolutely not. I think our age range is around 20 to around 70.
Say someone who's in their 80s or 90s, would you welcome them into your
Absolutely.
space?
Yeah, everyone is welcome. We try to choose repertoire and songs that are applicable to everyone and to everyone's tastes. It's tricky, but we do try. So we've got everything from Elvis to Sam Smith, and there's lots of input from the choir around what we want to do and what we want to sing and what's going to work for us. There's it's not rigid. We want to be flexible and adaptable to meet the needs of the people who are there.
I love that idea of people coming together. So once we get, now this is my neurodiverse hat coming on here. So I put in my forms, I make contact with you or your social media person.
Yeah.
And I arrive at the site. What will I expect to do on my first initial meeting at the space? Do I have to perform in front of everybody?
Absolutely not. No auditions, no musical experience required. You'll probably fill out a name card if that's something you're comfortable doing, which we like to wear our names with pronouns if you use them. Some people don't, and that's all okay. Then we will introduce ourselves. So generally what you do is, if you would like to participate, say your name, pronouns, maybe a little fun fact, classic icebreaker. Then we'll do some warm-up. And that's kind of where the vocal education will come in if that's something that the group wants on that day. So around how to support your voice and maintain it and look after it, but also, there's some people who are going through vocal transition at the moment. So we look at exercises to support them to use their voice comfortably over the session. Then we sing a couple of songs. We have a cup of tea in the middle, so you get to know the people in the group, which is really lovely. I've made lots of friends out of the choir.
It sounds like a really sort of safe space where people can come together and through the power of voice connect.
Yeah.
Because for many of us, our voice has been sometimes weaponized against us.
Yes.
So I'm wondering that when people start singing, do you see changes in people? Because you're there in the front, being the choir director. Do you see do you kind of think, oh my God, there's a change in this person as they sing?
You see people become really just engaged in the music and like with each other, and there's this really beautiful, one of my favorite things to do, because I'll often sing along too. I'm generally playing guitar and we're in a little circle, but I'll often like catch myself forgetting to sing because I'm just looking at everyone smiling or being really in the moment. It's really beautiful.
I'm just listening, and because I'm a visual person, I'm just imagining the space and the love that must fill that room. That because for many people, they have perhaps never had that opportunity to sing authentically as themselves, as their affirmed self, and to be in a room with other people who are affirming themselves must be a very powerful experience for them.
I think so. I know it's powerful for me because I get to be myself and share this lovely thing with other people. But there's also something really powerful about, like standing on stage and saying, look at me, I'm singing, I'm trans, I'm supposed to be here.
And what was it like, Jack, when you did one of your gigs for? Can you tell us a bit about that?
So we've done a handful of gigs now. We did the Transgender Victoria gig was for Trans Day of Remembrance, which was it was a lovely, really beautiful event run by Transgender Victoria and City of Yarra. We got up and we sang, I think maybe 3 songs. Basically, we made the audience cry, which but in a nice way. It's a hard day. There's a lot of tears on that day for a lot of people.
And I think a part of that could be the fact that something about the voice and the powerful voice. We some of us write about voice in terms of social movement, and I think I wanted to bring that idea that choir is, although it's singing, it's more than just singing, and it's about connecting. It's about showing the community that yes, we are visible, but we're also a powerful, loving human beings that just want to authenticate ourselves. And then I think when people sing, it transcends gender, it transcends human embodiment into a kind of a spiritual sound that we can't necessarily understand, but we know it's powerful. And reason why I'm taking us there is because both I found out you and I have very similar interests and in areas of work, and one of the areas that I'm interested in is now palliative care and supporting people making choices, and you being a musical therapist. Tell us what's it like for you being involved in that space for palliative care? What got you driving to that sort of area?
I've only recently moved into that field, but I think it's really powerful. I think music is really powerful in that space because music is such a marker of your life. There's so many, I don't know, like if I listen to a song from my 20s or when I was 13, like I'm straight back there. Or if I'm working with someone and they're telling me about their youth, often they'll talk about like a dance that they went to and they met their partner at this dance, and they can tell me the exact song that was playing. And it's this really beautiful way. Music has this great way of marking your life and holding this, I don't know, audio timeline of your humanity, of your life.
Music, and how I write a bit about this sometimes, where I say that for my generation, or people even before my generation growing up, say the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, music was a safe space where we could get into the world of the song and reimagine ourselves within that song and space. And for those couple of minutes, we became one with the song, and our sense of acceptance, and if it was with another person next to us, we could go into that world of love.
Yeah.
And this is so deep with music, because whatever the song is, the words in the song and through the melodies transforms us to a space that is universal. Love is universe, the universality of it. Do you find that within palliative, your work there, that you always feel when somebody has passed that you leave more enriched?
Like you were saying, you get to step into someone's life, and you can, when someone shares a significant song with you, or the significant memory that goes along with that song, you get to kind of walk beside them in their life. It's really, it's a real privilege to get to share this really precious time when people know their time's limited.
I want to now kind of deep dive personally into Jack. Was there a particular song in your life that kind of an aha moment that affirmed, oh yes, I am a trans man? The song that you connected with a particular song?
Being able to finally sing those parts that I've always wanted to sing has been really special. And I don't know, my transness kind of snuck up on me a little bit. I've only recently kind of really come to terms, but it was this kind of unpacking of all of the heteronormativity, the cis normativity that I was really trying hard to conform into. So I think it was, rather than aha moments, it was these moments afterwards where I realized everything that I'd kind of wanted but didn't even know, hadn't even let myself experience that. So like I was really obsessed with Into the Woods as a child, and also Oliver the musical. And now as an adult, with my voice now finally deeper, I've started going back and listening to those songs and learning them again, because it's what I'd always wanted but hadn't even let myself really think about it.
It's interesting because when you say I have let myself think about it, that's exactly what I felt in 1982 when I listened to the Eurythmics, and I am just blown away by Annie Lennox.
She's amazing.
And I remember, like, I only affirmed myself as a trans woman only a few years ago now, and I was re-listening to Annie Lennox, and she was singing Why Again, and I just started crying because I thought, oh my, I am me.
Yeah.
And every time I hear that song, I just think, yeah, you can be yourself. And, and that's why I say music is so powerful, because even when I talk about music, it's the one thing that can make me cry, because it is so personal.
It is. Yeah.
And it takes us to a place where nobody can hurt us.
Yeah.
For those couple of minutes. And it's incredible, that journey. And it's like, I always say to people that, if you experience transphobia and you experience hate, and even if you're from the wider LGBTIQ, or whether you're an ally and you get some form of hate, and putting back my old hat as socially, I'd say music can sometimes sit in a room with a young person. It can make you, soothe you, and takes you to that real comfort space.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important as a young person who sometimes doesn't feel safe around them, because, sometimes we need to get that sound to make us feel safe. And I'm taking us there because I know one of your passions that you really want to do, and we want to speak to it today, is about a choir, for a trans choir.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about this, your vision.
My vision, yeah, for a youth trans choir. So my background is prior to palliative care is working with adolescents and working with young people. And I think maybe if I don't know, this is what you always kind of think about, what would have been different for me. And I think if I'd had a place where I could make music fully as myself and see other adults being themselves and successful and living full, rich lives, I want to create that space for young people where they feel included in a choir, where they feel like it's their place, and it is their place, and they should be able to use their voice. Choir is really beautiful as well because you get to make friends, and I find it so important to have that peer support, to make friends with other people who are going through similar experiences to you. Yeah, I'd love to start a youth choir, Key Change Youth Choir.
I think it's wonderful because the idea of having one, it just gives young people a space to come together that they can meet new friends, and through the powers of music and song develop themselves.
Yeah.
And build a sense of resilience, and who knows where it can take us. I mean, because one of the things that I sometimes find a little bit problematic is, and I love like Glee and I support that, but where are our community for our kids?
Right.
Where can trans and gender non-conforming young people express their creativity and be applauded for it and revered?
Yes.
And idolized, dare I say that word, idolized. And this is what we need as our next step up. We need spaces where young people who are trans and gender diverse can come together and explore through the voice, the power of voice, the voice that is often weaponized by them in school because you sound different, or you don't sound binary male, you don't sound binary female, to then be able to come together and be themselves, and then produce magic.
Yes.
With their peers, and then be celebrated for it and taken to a space where they can get through their schooling because they've got this as their backup, that part of their, and as you said before, markers of your life can be part of that and heal.
Music's for everyone, it shouldn't, choirs aren't just for cis people. And, ultimately we shouldn't have to be segregated, but also it's nice to have a space that's just for us too. And I think adolescence it can be so tricky. So to have a safe space where young people can work out their gender and meet other people who are doing similar stuff, or, maybe they're really affirmed in their transness, and that's fabulous as well.
Jack Browley, it's been an absolute pleasure in having you today for Quests on Community. If you're out there and you're interested to becoming involved, you may have children who are trans and gender diverse, or relatives, get in contact. Jack's waiting, and let's make this happen. This is Ricki Spencer, and you've been listening to Quests by Community.